Okay, in today's presentation we're going to learn about why competing rights, that means rights which clash, two different rights, need to be balanced. And you need to use this presentation and the rest of the material in this website post to complete the homework sheet. Remember, as always, go back if you need to, pause the video if you need to, rewind anything if this is going too fast, and make sure you understand things as you're going along. Right, imagine this. You have Mr. Pink Triangle. Comes along, says, well, I think all red onions stink. It should be banned. Only brown onions are good. Well, Mr. Red Onion comes along and says, you can't say that. You're treating me badly because of the colour of my skin. Mr. Pink Triangle replies, actually, I can because I have the right to express my opinions. To which Mr. Red Onion rightly replies, well, I have the right not to be discriminated against because of my skin colour. Now, here you have a situation where you have two different viewpoints. There are two different rights which both of them have, so technically both of them are right. But because it's causing a conflict, these rights need to be balanced. We need to, in order to keep the peace, judge, okay, is it okay for both of them, just in this case, to have both of these rights? Or does one of their rights need to be taken away so that you can keep the peace? For example, in this case, you might take away Mr. Pink Triangle's right to express his opinion so that Mr. Red Onion won't be discriminated against. And that way, Mr. Red Onion can live his life and there is going to be peace in society. Which brings us to what we call absolute and non-absolute rights. So this statement, only some rights are absolute. What does absolute rights mean? Well, an absolute right is something which can't be taken away or changed in any way. All of you, man, woman, child, adult, old or young, have them all of the time. That means whichever rights are listed as absolute cannot be taken away, can't be changed, can't be interfered with. And we'll look at some examples. Non-absolute rights can be limited in specific circumstances, which means they can either be changed or taken away. As you saw earlier, a non-absolute right of freedom of expression might be limited, might be taken away in one situation to maintain peace. And again, we'll look at examples of non-absolute rights as well. So in your worksheets you have a question which asks you to list the definition of both of these. Make sure you understand what both of these mean and list the definition. Again, if you need to repeat any of this, go back and play the video again. Let's move on. In the Human Rights Act of 1998, which you were introduced to, there are only two absolute rights, which means there are only two rights which can't be taken away, can't be changed. There are no circumstances in which these two rights can be taken away from someone. They are: no one can ever, under any circumstances, be tortured or treated in a cruel or humiliating way. Now some of you might be saying, well, actually this does happen. You're right, but people still have the right, absolute right, not to be treated this way, so they can fight for this, and no one can turn around and say, well, actually in this circumstance it's okay to do it. It's never okay. The second absolute right is the right not to be treated as a slave or forced to work for free. Again, if this is happening and you take that person or that organization to court, they can't turn around and say, well, actually in this case it's okay. No, in any case, anywhere, these two rights, it's never okay to treat someone as a slave or to torture or humiliate someone. The rest of the rights are non-absolute. So there are 16 rights in the Human Rights Act. 2 of those are absolute. That means 14 are non-absolute. They can be changed or taken away from you in some circumstances. So people can turn around and say, well, actually, in this case, you don't have that right. Let's look at one example. Everyone has the right to liberty, which means freedom. Is this an absolute right? You might be thinking, well, actually, yeah, it is. It's not. And why not? Because, for example, if you're found guilty of a crime, you can be put in prison, which actually limits your freedom, which takes your freedom away to do the things you might want to do. So there are circumstances in which your freedom can be taken away. Therefore, the right to liberty is a non-absolute right. And remember, if you've forgotten the definition, go back and check it and keep that in your mind as you go through this. The second example: no one can be tortured or treated in a way which is cruel or humiliating. This is an absolute right because there are no circumstances in which someone can turn around and say that, you know, in this case it's okay. Regardless of what anyone's done, they cannot be tortured.